Anyway, Kenny Rogers.
He's dead now.
Do you think he ever traveled to the Philippines and enjoyed the chicken bearing his name for which he received no money?
Better question, do you think that George Lucas ever traveled to the Philippines and ate a Kenny Rogers Roasters chicken?
And do you think Kenny Rogers stood outside the restaurant staring at George Lucas eating his chicken through the window and just thinking, man, I wish I was getting some royalties from this.
George Lucas
time to go die.
George Lucas would call him a cuck. You let somebody else fuck your royalties.
Right.
Shannon?
I don't know. I'm just shocked. I just read on Reddit that Disney edited Daryl Hannah's butt out of Splash with bad CGI for the new release.
What did they edit in?
No, it's just, I think...
Did they use a fish?
I think they want... It doesn't say this, but it might say it in the post, but just off the top of my head, don't you think this has to do with their wanting to release the film on their streaming platform?
They have.
And wanting it to be family friendly. Okay, so you're more up to date on this than I am.
Well, I've seen it. I mean, I haven't...
You've watched the film?
I've seen the film in the past.
I've seen Splash.
I have not seen it recently, but I have seen it listed on Disney+.
If you were born in the 80s and you haven't seen Splash, then you weren't born in the 80s. You're lying. That is quintessential. But yeah, Disney, I don't think it's setting a very good precedent, because Disney's saying they're willing to make these kinds of creative choices just to force a film that's not necessarily oriented towards like families with young children, if you're just forcing them to be something they're not, using, like this thread says, bad CGI, and it's all economically, financially motivated. Disney's just acting like a mustache-twirling villain.
Yes, Splash is a...
Profits.
Splash is a romance, and it's about a vulnerable young creature that is living in
Billy Gilman.
a single man's apartment.
I broke my own rule.
There's a lot of weird sexual tension there, and I don't think that the theme of Splash is appropriate for families.
So
there may not be any nudity or cursing, but the whole idea behind it.
It was directed by Ron Howard, and I think at that moment it was like the late 80s, so he was just a few years out of playing Richie Cunningham, so he probably was trying to break away from the wholesome vibe. So he says, oh, I'm being given this movie to direct, and it's about a mermaid, but screw this, I'm going to make it sexy. I'm going to make the mermaid sexy. I'm going to show people I'm not Richie Cunningham. I can make a sexy mermaid movie. So I'm going to show butt. And I'm going to hire this actress, Daryl Hannah, who's shown butt before. So she was in Summer Lovers, and she was in Blade Runner, and I think she showed cheek in both of those. So she's going to be up for it, and I'm down for it. So I am this, wholesome, balding man who was this beloved television icon from the 70s, but I can direct mermaid movies, and I can make them sexy, and this is my statement to the world.
And this is what I mean. That is clearly what Splash is, and it's not appropriate for Disney Plus streaming.
So this is a bad choice.
Yes, but...
So the solution is, because Disney has a huge catalog of films that are sexy, so they need to have a separate area of Disney Plus for adult movies. It can't all be child-friendly.
Yes, but how would that look if they said, this is Disney's adult section? I mean, it just sounds bad.
And how far are they going to go?
They're trying to avoid that, maybe?
Are they going to edit out the sexy, dancers from the animated version of Aladdin? Because if you remember back, there were some sexy moments in those children's films. I mean...
I don't really like...
Little Mermaid, there were dildos in the tower. They were there.
I don't know if this is... an unpopular opinion, but I'm not. I'm not that attached to the older Disney films. I'm not. I mean, from 90s back, I just think that none of the themes were appropriate for children.
That's a good sign that you are a well-adjusted adult, that you're not attached to films that were made for 7-year-olds. So breaking news.
I just don't think that they were made for 7-year-olds. I think they have a lot of...
They were, Mariah. They were made for little kids. You're too old for them.
No, but they're all about getting married and romance, and not even like healthy romance. Which I think the new Pixar films, which are more about family and adventure, are more appropriate for kids. So I don't know. I'm just, there's something creepy about stuff like Snow White and Cinderella and The Little Mermaid.
This is starting to sound a bit woke, so maybe we should turn the corner. Why don't we turn the corner into the darkness of the Texas night? It occurs to me that for a lot of people, for most people, I think just being alive is like a mystery. That's what life has been called, the mystery. Their answers will never get. Questions that we'll keep asking, but the answers will never come. And some people looking for those answers will turn to like science, like textbooks. But there's another kind of person that will turn to the night itself for answers. It's like two different kinds of people. Shit.
I think like, there's a type of person who hasn't...
Okay, let me lay this out. It's like two different kinds of people. One who will turn to science, and like the Juggalo and many others, they will turn to the sky or the night or the void and just ask it questions. And the answers they receive usually come from their own minds.
You have to concede that there's something very appealing about, to someone who maybe...
What I mean is shadow play when I say the night.
Well, there's somebody who listens to a program like Coast to Coast AM and then reads some Wikipedia articles about cryptozoology.
No,
or
this is the
UFOs.
Same kind of person I was talking about. That is the night itself.
That's what I mean. But
those are hands reaching into the darkness.
I'm saying there's something appealing about reading that and feeling that you have knowledge that about something that maybe a doctor doesn't. Like you have this degree and you have all this crap, but you don't know about this.
So you made a Reddit thread recently, you were telling me.
Are you saying I'm one of those people?
I'm saying this might be related.
I was hanging out in Humanoid Encounters in Reddit and came across an 11-month-old thread that I found intriguing because it was somebody from San Antonio who had experienced something similar to something we experienced, I think, about 10 years ago, if you remember.
Yes, I do remember this, but I don't know that I remember it the way you remembered it. So
get our story straight.
You can get your story straight, and then I will confer or make amendments to things you're saying based on my own memory of the experience.
We were driving down I think it was Scenic Loop Road at night, or was it early in the morning? I'm not sure, but it was dark. And
well, if you consider the role darkness is playing in this narrative, it's got to be the night, because this creature that you're about to talk about came out of the dark and went back to the dark. So it's hard to do that in the daylight. That's what I'm saying. It's a clue.
All I'm saying is I don't know if it was early in the morning or early in the evening, but it was dark. I don't remember. This was a long time ago.
It was absolutely dark.
Yes, and you were driving very slowly, as you always drive, very slowly and cautiously, carefully. And I don't know why I make hand movements. I always look really...
You just became Bernie Sanders from what? That loser.
Anyway, you were driving very cautiously, and this small, white, hairless, humanoid creature emerged from the tall grass by the side of the road.
Or what appeared to be that in your mind at that moment.
Yeah, but I mean, it was very clearly what it was.
You don't have tactile confirmation.
I don't have a photograph.
A photograph, or
I didn't jump out of the car and tackle it.
You didn't
Like
cradle.
I would a capybara.
You didn't cradle it in your arms.
No,
You didn't cradle it in your arms like an alien infant and flew at it.
like Garrett Watts' satanic baby doll. No, I did not.
Or like the satanic version of the devil that was being held by someone in the Jesus scenes from Mel Gibson's Jesus movie. There was like this baby that had a gross face.
Or that baby from that or the baby from that sniper movie by Clint Eastwood.
Well, all kinds of films, or Twilight. I mean, horrific. Hollywood has more horrifying babies than like normal babies.
Well, this wasn't horrifying. It was just confusing.
We don't know what it was because we didn't get that good a look at it.
No, you were driving very slowly. It came from the grass onto the road. It was sort of scampering.
It appeared to us,
and it looked at us for a brief second.
Okay, it appeared to us as a small humanoid, but it had the proportions of an adult, just small.
It was like a miniature adult, completely hairless, and very bright white, like a sea creature from the depths of the ocean,
but
from the Marianas Trench.
Is it possible this was like a
something that would only
like an
be able to
albino
see
pygmy
using some kind of sonar?
Is this possible that this was like an albino pygmy that we were seeing from further away than we were? That was just happened to be.
But
in
why
Texas?
would a naked albino pygmy be hanging out on Scenic Loop Road?
So you think it was an alien? So
no, I didn't
why
say
is that. More,
I'm saying I don't know what.
Why
it
is that more credible than a naked albino pygmy?
Well, the consensus was that they were gnomes of some kind. No one seemed to think it was an alien.
What is a gnome, Mariah?
I don't know, a mythological creature.
You're in school, so define your terms.
Well, I was saying terms don't really matter because we don't know what the hell it is. You could call it an angel, a demon, a ghost, a
so you're asking people to enter a discussion where gnomes are brought up, and
I'm just saying people were terming it gnome.
In the world of this recollection, this reminiscence, a gnome is possible. And I'm saying outright, I might reject that.
I'm saying someone else immediately posted a thread.
No play for Mr. Gray.
Somebody else.
And it might have been a gray.
Why am I doing this hand movement?
It might have been a gray.
Somebody said that, because, I posted a thread about this because I was interested. I wanted to share our story in relation to that other story.
That's
because
what you usually do. You have an experience and you wait 10 years and then you create a thread about it.
Well, I saw a thread about a similar experience. Someone else who had the same kind of experience by the side of the road.
I might have a respectable career, so I shouldn't write about this. But 10 years later, you're like, yeah, I'm never going to have a respectable career, so I'll just fucking write about it.
Fuck.
So we are not. I don't know why you're here, but I am not here.
I live here.
I am not here to advocate for the legitimacy of this memory. I will agree with you that it happened, and I saw what you saw, but I don't.
We looked at each other, and we just.
Well, people can.
What would you call it? Incredulity? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Incredulity? It was the age of incredulity.
Yes, that.
The epoch of incredulity.
We just looked at each other like we couldn't, like, did we see that?
Okay,
we kept going.
People look at each other. Now that I'm with you that far.
People
can look at each other, but before and beyond that, there are moments involving creatures that I can't necessarily co-sign.
Let me bookend this, though. It emerged from the tall grass, scampered a little ways, looked at us, and kept scampering, and went back into the tall grass on the other side of the road. Then we looked at each other and kept driving.
There's a song.
Can you confirm that? Confirm.
There's a song
confirm.
There's a song by Fleetwood Mac. It's from their album Rumors, which is very popular. It's the first song, in fact. It's sung by Lindsey Buckingham, who's a man, and if you don't know anything about Fleetwood Mac, that might need to be clarified,
because Lindsay is not a man's name, except in this case.
Well, my name is Shannon.
Not traditionally.
I am sympathetic to that situation because I have also one of those ambiguous names, an androgynous name. It could go either way. But one of the lines in this song is, "Let me lay you down in the tall grass and let me do my stuff." Raya, if Lindsey Buckingham proposed to you, he lay you down in the tall grass so he could do his stuff, and he didn't say anything else, would you agree to that?
I'm just take that can of spumoni somewhere else. I'm not ready for that.
Would you even ask him what stuff meant, or would you just start defending yourself physically?
I don't think you'd have to defend yourself very hard, though. I think he'd go down easy.
White afro man bad. Start swinging. Boom.
But to continue.
I will say that in the 70s, he was one of the top 10 most attractive white men with afros. Okay, now continue.
Well, I don't know how, but I've been Buckinghammed.
This thing emerged from the darkness. It's an experience we had.
It looked at us.
Okay.
And it kept going.
The way it moved across. Okay. Do you remember the footage?
And I have to clarify, this was not a child. It was not a midget. Can you say midget or little person?
Say them all, and
This was not
If you aren't sure, in my experience, you just say several of them. It's like when you're on a trading platform and you open a position in like a market, the platform itself will immediately open the opposite position.
Well, I don't want to offend anyone.
It's like
not in that way.
It's like they hedge their bets. In my mind, if you say midget, then just say dwarf, little person. It's like you're opening opposite positions. You're hedging your bets like one of the big boys. Go ahead.
As you would say, I don't have the desktop ticker for the politically correct wave. I should, though. Should I?
No.
Anyway, this was clearly some kind of creature.
I think this is just because you mentioned Bernie Sanders earlier, and
it was an animal, but it just did not look like an animal.
You keep doing this with your arms, so I keep thinking about Bernie Sanders. Do you remember that footage of Bernie Sanders running across the lobby of like an airport trying to escape like reporters?
No.
This exists, and
there was a frenzy about this creature.
Every time you
harkens to something.
Every time you mention this creature, I just see a nude, small Bernie Sanders running across the road, the way he ran across the airport in that footage.
Well, it was as strange as that. It was just something so out of the ordinary that you just wondered if you saw what you saw. Mm-hmm. And both of us, we had the expression on our faces that, did we see this? Did that just happen?
But I know that the mind plays
Let's
tricks.
forget that happened.
I know shadow play is real, and the mind plays tricks, and I'm not saying it was anything, but I definitely saw it.
But what intrigued me and why I made the thread was because I saw another thread, somebody very meticulously detailing a very similar experience recently. And when I made this thread, so many other people came out and said, yes, I've seen that too. In San Antonio, and so is San Antonio a gnome hub?
Well, they're not necessarily. If you just want to say a small,
has our military opened up a portal to another realm?
Is Danny DeVito a gnome? Yes or no?
Wait, no.
If someone is below a certain height, or if a human is below a certain height in your mind, are they a gnome? So if I'm willing to accept that.
I'm talking about something about this.
If you're saying a gnome is a different species, then I don't accept that. If you're just saying I'm using gnome to talk about small humans, then fine, let's call them gnomes. Is Warwick Davis a gnome?
No.
So why, whenever they make a film about gnomes and it's live action, do they cast dwarves if those aren't gnomes?
Because they need the work.
But if they look exactly like gnomes, then it's a gnome.
They don't look like gnomes.
So if their appearance doesn't have to be modified beyond putting a conical red hat on their head.
Have you ever seen David the Gnome? He's very tiny.
That is an artistic reproduction of a mythical creature.
No.
So if Warwick Davis can play a leprechaun, and he has like facial makeup, but beyond that his body is his body, then that is a leprechaun. In the world of that film, a dwarf is a leprechaun because they have the same body. You see what I'm saying?
That's the world of the film.
Okay, but we're
suspending our belief for a moment for something like that, but it's not exactly what you think of.
This had the proportions of an adult, but it was very small. What if our mind was playing tricks on us, and it was a short, naked man, but we were further away from it than we thought we were?
Oh no, this was so close to the car.
Okay, what if it was a
And we're not the only ones who have seen this.
What if it were?
That's what really intrigued me.
What if it were a large, hairless albino rabbit?
It could. Maybe yes, I could conceive maybe it's some kind of animal, maybe it's an escaped
Ryan,
primate. I don't know.
what if it was him?
Him who?
Chupa.
Goat sucker?
What if it was Chupa?
Chupa in Texas could be anything.
Chupa is like what you say if you're from Texas and you saw something that freaked you out, but you can't explain it. It's like, oh, it was Chupa.
It literally could be anything.
Like when you saw Viper the rapper at Starbucks, it's like, oh, I saw Chupa.
But we don't know if I saw Viper. He said he was Viper. He looked a lot like the dude, but I'm
Well, I
not
can
sure.
say
I think
I'm
he
Viper.
was too young.
Anyone can say that.
I was excited despite that.
I think
Starbucks is not very exciting work, so I mean any break from that.
I think I've been chipping away at the authenticity of the story that's finally gotten to you, so you're now accepting, yeah, maybe it wasn't him.
Well, no, I keep going back and looking at pictures of Viper, and I don't know, this guy may have not been old enough. He has similar features, and he claimed he was Viper the Rapper.
I've compared your photograph to actual pictures of Viper the Rapper, and I've never thought he looked similar. The person in your photos looks more like John Sally, who's a retired sports ball player.
I'm just very excited to have met somebody who claimed he was Viper the Rapper.
Okay.
There was a lot of joy in that picture. But to go back to this thread, I think there's something strange going on in San Antonio, and it may be all of the military bases here. It may be a Montauk style Stranger Things puncturing a hole into another world. Maybe a whole bunch of little white gnomes came out and overran the countryside, and for the past 10 years people have been catching sightings of these creatures. What do they do, though? What kind of colony would they make? Where do they hide?
Okay. In my mind, this is exactly... I've derailed the podcast, but I'm showing Mariah footage of Bernie Sanders running through the Just imagine, Mariah, imagine this.
Why do you want
they
this
can't
in my
see
mind?
It. Imagine this small and naked, and isn't this sort of what it was?
Yes, it had that feeling. I mean, the creature was obviously, it was running maybe from something. I don't know.
You now see why I'm just picturing Bernie Sanders.
But it did turn and look at us very quickly as it crossed the road, Bernie Sanders style. And that's how we got a look at its face. And it had a little human face. Well, so if it was an animal, I mean, it was an animal that maybe the hairless quality made it look a little human.
So I would make a joke about why did Bernie Sanders cross the airport lobby, but we certainly know the office of the presidency was not on the other side.
But no more comments on gnomes.
Because
do you think that there is higher paranormal activity in San Antonio?
I don't accept that there is such a thing as a gnome, so how can I comment on it?
Well, I mean, do you accept that there's such a thing as something unexplainable? There's a creature that we don't know what to call it.
The world would be not interesting if it wasn't filled with things that were unexplainable.
That's not a fun answer.
But it's the answer that keeps juggalos going. Magical mysteries, Maria. Sorry, that's like a really, really old 10-year-old meme.
Do you think there's a higher occurrence of paranormal activity in San Antonio?
Well, I think like Florida and other parts of the country, there are parts of the country, including Texas, where there are... I think there are parts of the country where there are a higher than normal occurrence of reports of paranormal activities, but I think that has to do with like the, I don't want to say the genetic stock, but maybe the cultural payload of those.
Well, you don't think that also it might be something...
It's a question as old as time. Why, when the aliens come down and they just employ the anal probe, is it never like a city dweller? It's always someone in the country.
Oh, it's often city dwellers. Haven't you ever read anything by Whitley Strieber?
Okay, so you just step on
He's like the anal probe king.
Okay, you just step on my joke and
all over it
And
like
you've
cockroaches when the lights go on.
And you've stepped on it and you've reversed the information and said the opposite is true. It's mostly city dwellers.
Flip that mattress. But
So it's like urban yuppies that this is happening to that are making these reports, because in my experience, it isn't. It's like Kenny Rogers doppelgangers.
Did Kenny Rogers ever claim to be probed anally by
I
someone?
didn't say Kenny Rogers. I said Kenny Rogers lookalikes.
Do you think it's something environmental?
The microphone?
No. States that have a lot of humidity, because a lot of people have suggested that that had something to do with...
Maybe, and I don't mean that the humidity was a great environment for gnomes to prosper. I mean, the humidity might have created the optical illusion necessary to think we saw something that we didn't actually see. So I'm still just looking for practical explanations that are based in reality, not the kind that would be featured on Ancient Aliens or would pique the interest of Giorgio or anyone like that.
So does that make me Giorgio and you are who?
Scully? I don't know. Which one was the skeptic, Scully or Mulder?
Scully.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I have to play the skeptic.
But in real life, she's not really like that, the actress. She's a little bit silly.
She believes everything she's told.
And David Duchovny's more Red Shoe Diaries.
So you're saying what we saw could have been David Duchovny, like running from an orgy in the forest? Like just
well, I certainly
naked,
could...
Very small, very naked. Was it engorged, or could we see that kind of detail?
No, but it did not seem to have genitalia, or if it did, that was not really visible in that moment. It was moving very quickly.
Well, you're saying it glanced at us, so maybe...
It did, and we saw the face briefly.
Maybe...
but it was so tiny, it wasn't human-sized.
So maybe it didn't have to say, hey, my face is up here, because we were looking at its face already.
It was about level with the hood of the Honda.
Its genitals weren't interesting to us in that moment. But had we more time...
What was interesting
our eyes
to
would have been
us?
cast downward. Surviving...
But
making it to Starbucks or wherever
I did say in the thread that it could be some rogue Ren Fair activity, which is rife throughout the state of Texas.
I think David Duchovny has entered the chat.
We've caught his interest.
I've heard that people, I don't want to make this too topical, but people with compromised immune systems are especially vulnerable to coronavirus. Have you heard that?
Not at all.
This is the first you're hearing it. It's breaking news. So I'm doing something that Dr. Fauci couldn't break this news directly to you.
Yeah.
So
I've heard that. Everyone has heard that by now. So.
Oh, so that was like a joke. It's like a little ruse. Like, no, I didn't hear that. Well, yes, I did. So on the farm, does that make them real slap? Is that a knee slapper up in Oklahoma?
Where the wind blows directly on the drains.
And over the tigers.
Hugh Jackman is crying.
Does that mean that it's like Anthony? We've brought this up. It's an important issue. Anthony Kiedis has AIDS. Do you want that footage out there of you being told that and then laughing immediately at someone's AIDS? You just laughed at someone's AIDS.
No, that's terrible.
It is terrible.
I'm such a bad person. I don't even
know. No, you're not a bad person,
but
it's an awkward question. And I just think that's an awkward laugh in response to a very awkward question.
It is.
You're not a bad person.
It's less in response to the topic of HIV and more in response to why are we talking about Anthony Kiedis?
Because we were talking about, the last episode that we uploaded, we were talking about like the older population, how they're irreplaceable, and if coronavirus starts picking these people off, there's no one to replace them in cinema. There's no one to replace Anthony Kiedis.
No, there's not.
There's no one that sounds like that. So I'm now worried about another thing that I wasn't worried about before, because I think Flea's fine. That guy looks like
he's kind of got that
that like STDs and diseases shoot through Flea, like, shit through a duck. Like it's nothing.
There's like a, what am I thinking of?
Keith Richards
there's like a Keith Richards effect there.
Like Keith
Richards, he could fall out of a palm tree and get hit with a coconut and he's okay.
We were thinking the same thing at the same time. So do you think we missed? Do you think Flea was like, when he read that story, he was like, so man, is that like the first time that happened to you? Because that's happening to me like 10 times. I've lost. No, I'm making him sound
I'm
like.
seeing him in The Son-in-Law, that scene where he's playing the
I forgot about that.
yeah, the tattoo artist, and they're like, that guy, like Pauly Shore's like, look at that guy. Just look at him.
He's actually a really
and
clever
he has
guy.
Sort of the meathead look.
Flea is well versed in music theory. He can teach classes on it, but
I'd like to see he and Johnny Greenwood get together and have a podcast of their own. That would be really interesting.
So you're saying he got together with the wrong member of Radiohead, with Atoms for Peace, his project with Tom York?
Well, I'm sure he and Tom York had a lot of fun together, but I don't know. I feel
don't
like
know,
there's
Mariah.
too
I
much
don't think
mutual
Tom
admiration.
York has had a lot of fun in his life with anyone. He's a very serious man.
Didn't they post a lovely Instagram photo together of them on like a little train or something?
Yeah, but they post nice photos like in prisoner of war camps showing people, oh, we're treating them well. So those photo ops are possible. That doesn't mean he's actually having a good time.
In Tom York's mind, he's always in a POW camp
I think
his own making.
When he was born, it's like he entered, like the state of the earth was like a POW camp for him.
He is that alien.
He's just constantly
trapped.
worried about sustainable resources. I think there was just something in the water for like a generation of Brits, because Matt Bellamy, like from Muse, is also obsessed with sustainable resources.
But he's more lighthearted about it, and he's also obsessed with reptilians, and he shut up about that though.
Well, I think you have to be... I just keep touching things until it stops. That sounds bad. That sounds awful.
I can't touch things because I'm wearing medicated lotion.
Yes, I
for contact dermatitis.
I could smell it when you came downstairs. I was really offended.
This is something a lot of people could get on board with, because I'm sure a lot of people are washing their hands a lot, and they're feeling the burn.
No one's feeling the burn anymore.
I said that
Bernie
up.
Sanders.
He put out the fire.
Bernie loser Sanders.
We didn't start that fire. It's gone.
But
It drowned in the river of dreams. Should I stop here?
Did Joe Biden put the fire out, or did he...
Joe Biden isn't doing anything. He's just there.
I think he's... Is that the refrigerator? Thank God it's not the equipment. Yeah, that's the refrigerator. This is not a set. We are actually filming in a kitchen. So these are the environmental sounds of a kitchen, where people have refrigerators that have electronic parts that sometimes go on the fritz. That's just a normal kitchen. So it's just flavor. It's a little bit of ear flavor. To coin a phrase.
That sounds like we're seeking enrichment from each other's ear canals, like primates.
Do you consider Atoms for Peace in their music to be ear flavor? Like, it's not
No.
like ear candy. So you're not into that?
I'm not. I want to be. I like Tom York. I
So
generally
you want
like.
to be
I
in-
know that what he's doing is very high quality. It's just not very enjoyable for me.
And he's a vegan, and you're a vegan, and he believes in the right causes. So you want to be on board with him, but it's like, man.
No, I didn't think about that at all. But
Okay. So someone doesn't have to be like you and like the same things you like for you to like their art.
not really. If I like somebody, I want them to be vegan, and I'm like, please, if I could just talk to you, I could change your mind. But
Damn.
they don't have to be.
So if you just...
I like a lot of people who aren't vegan.
So do you lay in bed at night thinking, if I just got into Kenny Rogers before he died?
No, that was. How much chicken fat do you think he's eaten? Or had injected into his face?
He's probably, with his money, I'm just going to answer the question seriously because I can't think of a joke. Probably more, like 4 or 5 times the amount that a normal person has eaten in their life, but it might just be people from his county. He's the coward of the county.
What do you think about the fact that Kenny Rogers Roasters is still alive and well in the Philippines?
I think that it doesn't have any connection to him beyond his name, as far as I know, that it got away from him, like so many women in his songs. That was the one that got away. Well, that's the big one that got away from him, his royalties from fried chicken. And So all of that money stays in the Philippines, which I think is a good thing for the Philippines because they're like a developing country.
I've
and they need
heard,
it.
as an American visiting the Philippines, when you encounter Kenny Rogers Roasters, it's a little odd, like you're back in the 90s or something.
Anyway, Kenny Rogers.
He's dead now.
Do you think he ever traveled to the Philippines and enjoyed the chicken bearing his name for which he received no money?
Better question, do you think that George Lucas ever traveled to the Philippines and ate a Kenny Rogers Roasters chicken?
And do you think Kenny Rogers stood outside the restaurant staring at George Lucas eating his chicken through the window and just thinking, man, I wish I was getting some royalties from this.
George Lucas
time to
just
go
thinks-
die.
George Lucas would call him a cuck. You let somebody else fuck your royalties.
Lucas got a massive payout from the sale of Star Wars to Disney. I think he got like $4 billion. That's a lot of chicken. It's a lot of TV dinners.
A lot of hungry men. He's not hungry anymore.
I don't think George Lucas has been hungry since 1973, and that might be a big clue in the mystery of like, why doesn't he care more about the writing and stuff like that? Well, when you stop having to worry about paying, like, not just basic bills, but like, you know, your next meal, you just don't have to worry about that ever again for the rest of your life. You just have to recalibrate what motivates you.
This is something that Tom York is very sensitive about.
I think Tom York is worth tens of millions.
Yes. Hold it close like a newborn babe.
Little baby's eyes. Eyes, eyes, eyes.
He just thinks too much, Tom York.
You know, George Lucas's screenwriting and dialogue gets ragged on constantly, but let's just place some of Tom York's lyrics on the table. Little baby's eyes, 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 eyes.
I don't know. There's some good lyrics, but there's some very strange ones. You're an artist, you got to get it out. Like a cat hacking up a hairball in a corner. It's got to go out. So
what's the hairball? The prequel scripts or like Tom York's solo career?
you said it.
I'm just trying to figure out what you're saying because we were talking about both things.
I think we should talk about Tiger King because I just watched the special hosted by Joel McHale. You still haven't seen any of it.
What
The
connection
series or
does
the
Joel
special.
McHale have to the material?
I have no idea. I was wondering that.
Is he from Oklahoma?
I don't think so.
Joel McHale looks like the kind of guy who's never been to Oklahoma.
Well, maybe that's why he was chosen. Maybe he was just available. I don't know.
What if they'd
He doesn't seem to know a whole lot about the people.
Right, imagine this. Joel McHale doesn't get that call.
I wondered if he even saw the series
Don't
because...
step on my joke.
Okay.
Larry King gets the call, Mariah.
Wait! What is it with the moniker King? I mean, I know it has nothing to do with Larry King, but it's reminded me.
That is a tie-in. That would make him even more of an obvious choice.
He's very old, though.
I don't think he could get through an episode of it at this point. I don't think he could get through.
But I don't think... I have a suspicion that Joel McHale did not watch the series either because he asked some questions that were sort of like, did you see this? He cautioned one of the people he was interviewing. He cautioned him, the head zookeeper, not to put his hand in any cages. But if you watch the series, you realize they're always in the cages. They've lost arms, these people.
Do you think...
Well, one of them.
So do you think tapping Joel McHale wasn't the move? Do you think they should have... Netflix...
Well, he's very affable.
Listen to this idea. Netflix, they pour over YouTube. They find someone with, a mid-sized channel, but they're very enthusiastic and they know a lot about the show. How about they get that guy to do the wrap-up show? Someone who knows about it, who can speak.
Well, anyone on Reddit would have been great.
Well, you can't hear those people, so they might...
That's true.
Their camera...
a lot of them have podcasts, though. Just an FYI. There's
Who
like
doesn't have a podcast
5,000. There's like 5,000 amateur podcasts on Reddit.
In case you thought we were on the cutting edge, this knife is dull as hell, Mariah.
Anyway,
We're not jumping in an empty pool here. We're elbowing other people and swimming through urine. That's the podcasting field. No, the chlorine is taking care of the urine, but not your coronavirus. Just don't take chlorine for that. It doesn't work.
But what is it with the moniker King in Oklahoma? They're very attached to that kind of, it's a Tiger King.
Like a regency, like the idea of luxury and royalty.
What else am I thinking of?
But it's not Oklahomans. It's just like a kind of people you can find everywhere. It's like, I don't want to get political, but it's why Trump appeals to these people: the opulence, the columns, the Baroque Rococo furniture, gold cherubs. It's like yeah, that's my jam, man.
And the need
that's what I'd do if I were rich.
And the need to own exotic animals. That seems to go along with that theme.
Do you think they would own tigers if they weren't exotic, like if they were really common? So do you think it's that they're really uncommon that is the
I don't
appeal?
know. And they're surprisingly inexpensive to buy.
And is a tiger...
A lot of people are surprised by that.
Is a tiger the upgrade to a pit bull?
I don't know about that.
So like if everyone on your block
I think you go pit bull, chimpanzee, tiger.
Why would you...
And then you start a harem, like
Okay.
Doc Antle.
I get going from dog to cat, which is like pit bull to tiger, but why would you diverge into like
I just
primates?
think that the chimpanzee seems the next step because they probably imagine it's more low maintenance.
Well, they're much more dangerous than tigers.
This is true.
What you see people doing with adult tigers that have been trained, you couldn't do with an adult chimpanzee under
No,
any
no.
circumstances.
Oh no.
They would rip your
I've-
arms out of their sockets.
As I have mentioned in previous podcasts, I used to volunteer for quite a while at a primate sanctuary. And the first time that you are introduced to the primates, and they...
Heads up.
Yeah, I know,
We have
we've
a
got
little visitor.
incoming. The first time that you are
Settle him, right?
down, baby.
This is little Dean Martin. He wants to be the star of the podcast.
I know, and
I
he
think he's
is.
going to be.
The first time you're introduced to a chimpanzee, an adult chimpanzee, it's
I haven't been introduced to one, but go ahead.
well, they're in a cage. And
I have actually,
you
because
are-
I went there and I took
Yes.
the tour and I had their names read off to me, and it's like they know their names. It's like, bitch, they don't care about these names. They just want to strangle you.
Well, when a new volunteer is introduced to the chimpanzees, you're usually giving out enrichment treats that you've made, and well, they're being handed out. You're standing 10 feet away. Any new people, they put on this great show of aggression, and you almost think that you're seeing a gorilla because they're so big you're not prepared for it.
And they're much more hostile than gorillas, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't seen a gorilla in person,
But you know this.
Yes, they're very. They have a lot of energy. They're very loud. They're very unpredictable. Once they get to know you, it's different. But you could never, actually be with one without a cage between you and it.
I just remember you were telling me this primate
I
sanctuary.
mean, I guess you could, but I couldn't see it with the primates that we saw.
This particular primate sanctuary, but perhaps all of them have financing issues. Like they constantly need to
yes.
receive donations. And my big idea was, take these chimps and fight them. Have Chimp Thunderdome, charge people, and bet on them. Not really. It was a joke. I don't really think that.
Yeah, just go full on bum fight. No, I don't know. Because we're not joking. We're talking about something real. It's a real sanctuary, and I have a lot of memories.
We are joking.
Yeah.
We're talking about something real and joking on top of it. And I'm hoping that
I know it
the
disrupts
audience
my
is
flow, though. I'm
mature
thinking about
enough to separate the jokes from the real information. Maybe they aren't. Maybe it just all crossbreeds.
Well, adult chimpanzees, they're very, very intelligent. People don't realize that. One of the things that we used to do, they would we would encourage them to throw their trash to us through the cage, and then we'd give them a treat, and they would do this thing where they'd throw the trash just a little ways and then act like they couldn't reach it so that you would come pick it up because they wanted to grab your hand.
What a dirty monkey trick. If Charlton Heston couldn't get any more angry at chimps, if you told him that, he would just stroke out.
I wonder, this would be very traumatizing,
Well, he's
very
for one,
triggering.
he's a skeleton. I mean, he's in the same crawl space as Emmanuel Lewis. Anyway.
Windmills of our minds. But I have great affection for those chimpanzees, but they're dangerous.
Yes, if I could describe your state right now, I'd say your reminiscence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they can be very sweet when they're not filling their mouths up with water and climbing up high and spitting it all down on you.
Their mouth with your genitals and lips. I just read a story about how the chimps will target like genitals and like ears and lips when they attack on humans. They just rip people apart.
I know that they can be very...
There's a very tragic story about a woman who had her entire face ripped off. But she lived and she had to have a facial transplant. And I guess it went as well as it could. Yeah, I don't want to talk about this.
Yes.
Oh, man.
But Tiger King, what would happen if the tigers are not
quite... The guy got his face ripped off.
Tigers are not quite the same thing. I'm sure they're just as dangerous, but wild animals should be wild.
A tiger is...
There should not be 200 tigers in a zoo in Oklahoma.
In a lot of ways, aren't tigers by their nature very similar to this animal? Just like a bigger version of this.
No. This is a cream puff.
No, but you'll see footage of tigers and they'll be acting very much like domestic cats. They'll be rolling over, wanting their belly to be scratched. They'll be purring.
Yeah, but this guy can scratch you up pretty good.
Yes, but if he were the size of a tiger, would our life be threatened by living with him if he were tiger-sized? I'm asking.
Probably. I don't know. Ask Tippi Hedren. She lived with large cats. I think she saw more fear from working with Alfred Hitchcock.
I think Melanie Griffiths, a lot of her issues relate to growing up in constant fear of being killed by lions and tigers.
I don't know.
I think growing up wealthy is a tremendous advantage, but I think the fear from the sanctuary animals sort of made it a draw.
So, an adult chimpanzee is much larger, louder, and scarier than people are generally prepared for. And I think that's what some of the problems with the setup with Tiger King were. They were breeding tigers, which if you're a sanctuary, if you just have tigers because they can't be returned to the wild, which Big Cat Rescue does, that's fine, but when you're breeding them, you're perpetuating a problem. And they were breeding them because tiger cubs, they were using them for photo ops.
So they weren't selling them.
I'm sure they were.
They were renting out their presence, but once they became adults, they became less valuable. Just this commodity that they just had to keep feeding. They had to move.
And they just keep having more and more. And the same thing, they get big and suddenly you can't have photo ops with a full-size tiger.
Well, you can. Sometimes you just have to consent to be in a situation where you might leave that situation, without a hand.
That reminds me, there were so many crazy things in Tiger King, the documentary. I think
that reminded you that there were crazy things in the documentary?
Yes, because he's
I didn't even see the documentary, but once you told me, oh, this is in Oklahoma and they're all Oklahomans, I know this is filled with some crazy shit.
Explain to people why Oklahoma is filled with crazy shit.
If I could do that, I would be like God. You'd be sitting next to God.
Well, I don't know. Our grandmother was from Oklahoma, and we went to Oklahoma several times. Very small towns, quicksand, turtles. The big restaurant at the time was Pizza Hut.
I think it's just a part of a number of states that have this heritage of being far flung. Like you have the northeastern states, which is like the center of civilization in history. The United States, that's where the focus of power was. So you'd go further and further west, and you'd have these wide open spaces where the laws were a little bit more lax. They got gradually more lax the more westward you went.
Well, we're from Texas, and I'm sure a lot of people think, Texas is far flung, not very metropolitan. What would differentiate it from Oklahoma?
Well, my point was, I think the net of civilization is now cast over the entire country, but the cultural inheritance, like the cultural payload of a lot of these people from these states, is inherited from these rougher times in history, and I think people still act that way. They act a little bit like people. Nobody's watching. Everyone's watching now in the cell phone, the smartphone, and the internet age, but that doesn't mean everyone acts like no one's watching, and therefore Tiger King. It's crazy behavior that was documented.
Well, some of it's
I'm glad
also,
we have it for posterity.
A lot of people did not realize that these roadside zoos that featured a lot of tigers, that there was not a lot of regulation, so a whole lot of crazy shit was going on, and they seemed to all know each other and despise each other, which led to a lot of almost guerrilla warfare between these zoos. And that's what you see in the documentary, and it's fascinating and horrifying. People...
Well, I think this ties into those attitudes, those historical attitudes in these parts of the country I was talking about. Anytime you have these...
Don't take my guns or my tigers.
You have these factions, I don't want to say Hicks, but if you have these factions of Hicks and they have these money-making enterprises, then obviously... once you have multiple enterprises that reach a certain level of success, they're going to be in combat with each other naturally.
Well, what you mentioned before, yes, a lot of these sanctuaries and zoos need a way to feed these animals and care for them, and they rely on donations. It's very difficult. I mean...
So it becomes sort of a...
How do you pay employees to take care of tigers every day?
They're in a welfare state where they are asking essentially for welfare to fund their interest in exotic animals.
Well,
I want to sit around and play with tigers, and I want you to pay for it. That's the gist of it. So it's the same with the primate sanctuaries. I want to play with monkeys all day,
Not exactly.
And I want you to pay for it. What is the purpose of this? Why is it better that these apes are in these sanctuaries rather than being dropped back where they came from in the wild?
In the case of the primates, a lot of them could never be returned to the wild because they
can be. Watch what happens. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot, Mario. Why can't primates from primate sanctuaries simply be returned to the wild? Drop some knowledge on me.
Well, some of them have diseases. They came from laboratories. They're retired. Test subjects. Others are from circuses or somebody who bought one as a pet and didn't realize how big and aggressive it would become. A wild animal like that is very used to being around humans and would seek out, humans, and it's dangerous. It's a bad idea. It's the same thing with the tigers. A tiger that's used to being...
Because of their interaction with humans and their history with humans, they are now just ineligible for, existing and thriving in their natural state. It's like almost like plastic in the ocean. These chimps have become sort of a human byproduct.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. And it's the breeding. I mean, they're breeding tigers to have tiger cubs, to have photo ops, to be able to fund their zoos. And in the case of medical research, we have monkey farms in Florida where we're breeding macaques.
I'm trying to pose as being very conscientious, but there's a part of me that's just like, let's just drop them out there in the wild and see what happens. Just drop them. Just put a little parachute on each of those chimps and just let them float gently and safely down into those wild domains and just see what they do with the wild chimps.
There are lots of
We might get those bum fights you want so bad.
there are lots of discussions about this, about programs to recondition them to even being able to survive in the wild, not relying on food from humans, knowing how to forage and hunt.
You mean that's
part of enrichment too.
Are you saying we haven't been having one of those scientific discussions about reconditioning chimps? You're saying this discussion we're having now won't be viewed on the academic circuit and be a source of like information on the issue?
Did you want it to be?
It is now.
But it's in some cases it's just not possible. It wouldn't be good for them. But what's happening now isn't really good either. So I think that's Tiger King is bringing that all to the forefront, and people are having that discussion.
Well, you look at these domestic cats that are walking all around us, and you'd say, "Oh, return them to their point of origin." But at this point, their natural habitat is Texas. Mm-hmm. Could you say the same?
It's a little bit different, though.
Could you say the same for tigers, that at this point their natural habitat is Oklahoma?
Are you saying we should release all the tigers to roam the Oklahoma wilderness?
I think you should put them into Billy Gilman's backyard.
Are you saying you want Billy Gilman to be eaten by a tiger?
I think because he knew Michael Jackson, he probably has experience with exotic animals, and he's an Oklahoman, so that's like 2 shots in his favor.
You think he could tame them with his angel's voice?
And he probably, A, he no longer has an angel voice because puberty, and B, he probably has a history of fighting off like large creatures who want something from him coming at him. Okay, let's move on. We're trying to reduce the number of jokes of that nature down to the absolute minimum, with the complete awareness that some of them will happen every podcast because they just happen anytime Ryan and I talk about anything. Shit. I feel like Michael Jackson is in the microphone line trying to shut down this discussion.
So you're saying no, his spirit, his ghost has come and is interfering.
Now you're in
our
my
electronics.
wheelhouse. Mariah, do you remember the Karen Allen 90s classic Ghost in the Machine?
No.
Does Karen Allen remember this film?
I don't know. I lost a lot of like.
Mariah, what you're
Kingdom
saying you
of the
lost.
Crystal Skull really.
I don't know
Karen
what
Allen and I think that was the end of Karen Allen and.
No. There was no beginning. It never. I don't know what you're thinking or going to say, but no one ever knew about Karen Allen. It never got going.
Starman.
So
She's amazing in Starman. That last scene where they're just closing in on her face.
Let's take out amazing and just say she was in Starman, and then that's accurate. I've made the sentence.
Jeff Bridges
factual.
was pretty good in that.
He's a very good actor. I think she's a good actor too. A good actress or actor.
And she also has this quality of sort of being this wild spirit. It comes across on camera.
Like
she's got rough edges,
she
but
could be any woman. She's not too attractive.
she's very sincere.
Does any woman want to hear that? It's like you're not too attractive. It's like
I think she's very attractive. Is that
no, but
because
she's
I'm
very
a woman and,
she's very
and I'm just seeing something
But do
you're
you
not?
think she looks like
Is there something
Angelina
that's
Jolie?
attractive?
Do you think she looks like Angelina Jolie in her prime? You realize there's this other kind of woman, and then there's like this normal woman who's attractive, but in a normal way. Like she could be your next door neighbor.
Shannon, I know there's somebody.
You're aware of this, and I think you're acting like you're not aware of this and putting me on the spot, but you're completely aware of what I'm saying.
I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just saying there are different types of.
Okay. So to you, in your mind, Karen Allen looks like a model.
I don't know. I think she's attractive in a very interesting way. Michael Jackson is attacking our equipment.
Karen Allen's right.
Is that like that's like?
Is she alive?
No, yes, she's alive, but I don't know.
She has the ability to become electricity. We discovered she had an ability. That's amazing. Breaking news. You can do something.
But we did say she was a very
No,
talented
we
actress.
kid. She's a talented actress, and she should have been in more parts.
With an interesting quality and
You see,
essence that I
the-
really respond to.
The quality I was trying to explain about her being in Every Woman, like a next door neighbor, it wasn't a put down, it was a compliment. I think Hollywood should have more parts like that for men and women who are just like normal people. They're not like pretty faces that have just been corralled into these parts where you're not used to seeing people who look like that, like models. It's like, I'm sorry, Karen, this is not getting any better the more I explain it.
No, she understands
You're
what you're
beautiful.
talking about.
I'm sure a lot of people who watched Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981 wanted to sleep with you. You were very attractive.
I think we should get back to talking about chimps and tigers.
Do you think she and Harrison Ford grinded on the set of Raiders?
Anything could have happened.
Do you think he raided her ark?
Well,
Do
ever
you think,
since
oh my God, there were ghosts in the machine in
Yes.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, and she was in Ghost in the Machine.
no,
These are the kind of things that blow my mind. I just said a few minutes ago she was in the 90s classic Ghost in the Machine.
I didn't know about that. I
Is
don't
the
think I've
corona
ever seen
affecting
that.
your short-term memory? Because I just mentioned that. I'm like David Duchovny in Zoolander. I just told you that.
I don't remember Zoolander.
Oh my God. It's like I'm diagnosing you on air. Do you remember Rainbow? Do you remember your name? Are you still Rainbow?
Oh, man. Well, another thing I did want to talk about. I came across this thread.
I don't
Is
think
this
we've
the
achieved.
time?
I don't think we've achieved the density of and completeness of discussion that.
We haven't hit
That Tiger
peak
King
Tiger
had to
King.
come.
Okay, well, what about
Well,
Joe Exotic?
Let me talk about my
I've-
point of view and where I'm coming from, and then you can react to that. I haven't seen Tiger King. I've heard about it, but mostly through Mariah and the internet, because every time you log onto Reddit, you go to the main page of Reddit right now at this moment in time, a lot of the posts that have been most upvoted are about this show. And Mariah has just told me before we started recording tonight that it's now the most watched documentary in human history.
Well, that's a quote from Joel McHale.
Okay. So this isn't like some special piece of information that you've mined out of your expert internet usage. This is like, oh, something everyone knows who watched the wrap-up show.
Pretty much, it's pretty well known. I think someone said on Reddit there was a thread about it being the biggest
Well, now
the
it's
most
known
watched
to even more
Netflix
people.
act.
10 more people.
Hmm.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Well,
I know Joe Exotic is in prison, and a lot of people are requesting that President Trump pardons him.
President Trump.
Like one of his final acts of his presidency, should he not be reelected, should be to pardon this person, Joe Exotic.
But if he pardoned him, would he be reelected?
Yes,
Why?
because Americans are going to American.
Why do they like this guy who was killing
Unless
tigers?
Joe Exotic then ran third party, then I think Joe Exotic would be elected president at this point.
He did run for office already. He ran for the presidency once already. That was part of the documentary.
Well, as a student of political history would tell you, Joe Biden ran multiple times in the past, but it was never at the right time. So maybe when Joe Exotic ran, it just wasn't the right time. Like when Whoopi Goldberg ran for the governor of California, it wasn't the right time, but it might be now. Did she run? Or was that Roseanne?
I don't know. I'm not.
Was Arnold elected governor of California, or was that just like a dream I had?
No, he was.
So Americans are
He's
gonna-
generally thought of as having been a good governor as well.
I've heard Californians.
He's a pretty good guy.
Express vehemently the opposite point of view, that he was a terrible governor. They won't watch any of his movies because of the way he governed.
I'm not up to date on it. I thought they liked
But
it.
you're not a Californian.
No, I'm not. I'm a Texan.
I think when most people heard about Tiger King, the first thought was, oh, well, what else is new? It's Florida. So everyone thought it was the first assumption that this took place in Florida, and these were Floridians.
Well, one of the zoos in the documentary is based in Florida, so there is that.
There is a Florida connection.
Mm-hmm. There's several, and one's in North Carolina, I believe. I did not watch the entire documentary. I was walking around while I had it playing, as some people do, but there was just a lot of craziness going on. There were drug dealers and people trying to bomb each other's sanctuary. Joe Exotic was making country western music videos and lip syncing and having someone else do the vocals.
So did he have a YouTube channel?
I don't know. He was putting videos out. I don't remember exactly how he was getting that out.
So do you think he was one of these people that were just of a certain age and a certain time that at the time he was doing this, YouTube wasn't even on his radar? It's like he didn't even know what that was.
I think YouTube was around, but not in Oklahoma.
Oh. Well, the internet, Florida man in Florida is a big joke on the internet. But what people on the internet don't know about is there's like something beyond Florida man. And it's Oklahoma man.
There is definitely an Oklahoma thing.
In fact, don't you think if Florida man and Oklahoma man, it's like what you're saying, this series is sort of like their combination, and I think that's like when Vegeta fused with Goku, Oklahoma man and Florida man coming together, and Tiger King is exactly what you would expect from that fusion. Do you think these are good points?
I think it makes sense. It's just a load of so much crap coming at you when you're watching it that you just can't believe what you're seeing. So much craziness was going on.
This is why I think, well, everyone is under quarantine right now, but I think a lot of people think...
That's another question. Were the ratings so high because everybody's stuck in their house? Or was it because this was just that amazing? Maybe it's a combination.
I think
Maybe
it would have done well,
storm.
but I don't think it would have broken the records. It broke as quickly as it did had people not been confined to their houses. So that's absolutely a factor. Probably a big one, but I don't have the statistics right now to back that up. I mean, they're coming in. I'm getting them. But but I was going to say...
Michael Jackson is bringing them to us via ESP.
Through the XLR cables.
I'm going to bust out the Ouija board in a minute. We're going to get the answers.
Don't you think if he...
The first one's going to be TEEHEE.
Don't you think if Michael Jackson were in spectral form, he would have better things to do than, like, hang around the Texas Hill Country?
No. No, actually, yes. I'm thinking of Chuck Berry.
There are no schools out here.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I see the line that's taking.
It's like we specialize in low-hanging fruit. It's like
direct lines.
We
Shannon.
don't even look at the top of the tree. It's like if there's low-hanging fruit, just take it. It's like the shortcut guy. It's like the path of least resistance, and that line that you're talking about is like the lowest of the lowest hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. And see, Michael's mad again. He said, "Stop."
Wait, he's not Chris Tucker in The Fifth Element.
He might be because he was friends with Chris Tucker. Do you remember for a while
yes.
they were like going to movies together and they were like a gay
There was something
couple.
fascinating about that relationship. I think they both had a youthful quality that, and that's no slam on Chris Tucker. I don't mean youthful as in he's abusing children. I mean youthful in...
Well, you didn't have to just say it. You could have just said he just didn't share Michael's hobbies and enthusiasms.
Proclivities. Mm-hmm. I do think that he's a youthful individual who probably enjoys things like roller coasters.
You don't think he
Looney Tunes and popcorn.
You don't think he inhabited the same
and who doesn't
Epsteinian spheres that Michael would have thrived in and probably did?
No, did he? That seemed like a different kind of thing.
Liable. I don't know. I hope that the Jackson estate doesn't come out with half. I'm just saying shit. I'm just saying whatever comes into my mind. But I do think
treachery.
I do think Charlie Sheen probably
Pube-covered trebuchet.
Charlie Sheen probably.
Flinging shit.
I think Charlie Sheen had some wild adventures between the trailers on the set of Lucas, and I'll just leave it right there. Boom, right on the table. And I'm not saying what he did behind and between and amongst the trailers on the set of Lucas, but I'm saying he did things. Things happened, and you can't.
Things are happening now, I'm sure.
There's no lawsuit that we could have laid on the table. I've said so little, so I've protected our podcast and myself. And he's another person who definitely has AIDS, and that's a fact. He's actually admitted it, that he was the source of that information. He said, I have AIDS.
I'm seeing the podcast as being sort of a phallic symbol, a lovely phallic symbol. And we've taken that prophylactic and like the people who pull the rubber gloves, the crazy doctor in movies.
Like Cupid?
Yeah, and we pulled it over and
Cupid, no, I'm interested.
So that we can traverse these disease-infected waters.
So there's more to be discussed about Tiger King, and I'm just the wrong person to do it because I haven't seen the show. But I know. And
I'm getting loopy and tired. So
I know there are other
people.
There are other people on the show that you need to tell me about, like this woman. You said there was this woman who may or may not have killed her husband.
Oh, it's become sort of an internet meme. This show heavily implies that she murdered her husband, but he seemed to be kind of a shifty, her first husband, not her current husband. And he seemed to be kind of, he had like ambiguous income.
So you're saying out of all
a whole life in another country.
Out of all the people you've mentioned so far, this person is shifty.
No. Well, she is shifty, but they think she murdered her husband her first husband, because he disappeared. But the way that they describe him, he seemed like he might have had some sort of career as a drug dealer or something. And he flew private planes that he didn't have a license for, and occasionally had accidents. He could have disappeared and had nothing to do with her.
I feel like having a history as a drug dealer, if you're applying for a job at an exotic animal sanctuary, is like being a Microsoft certified engineer. It's sort of like a prerequisite.
Well, I did hear that the makers of the documentary did a lot to enhance the craziness, like having one of the zookeepers interviewed next to a dumpster, and he had a missing arm, and they had him take off his prosthetic because they thought that would look better. Another character had like false teeth, and they had him take them out. They did a lot to make it seem as bad as it possibly could be.
So they had to do the reverse of what they did for Karen Allen on Starman. They had to
lay off poor Karen Allen. Jeez.
So this footage is like quite old, right? So if it's such good footage and it's so compelling, why were they sitting on it for so long?
Well, apparently they were filming over the course of several years, and many of the people involved were under the impression that it was a documentary about conservation. And Doc Antle talked a lot about that. And Karen Baskin, I believe that's her name, the director of
Carol or Karen?
Karen or Carol? Carol, it's Carol, but I just think Karen because she has that Karen feeling. And now with the internet meme.
No. Karen can exist all the way up into the Midwest, but the further south you go, Karen can't encapsulate all of the qualities of the women further than the Midwest.
But is Carol Baskin originally from...
I'm saying Karen ends in Missouri, and in Oklahoma and Tennessee, something else starts.
This wasn't Oklahoma, though. I believe Big Cat Rescue, I think, is in Florida. I'm not sure.
That's even worse. There are no Karens in Florida. There are only Florida women, which is something else. It's another species.
They definitely edited it to make it look as crazy as it possibly
Well, they
could
edited
be.
it to be entertaining.
Yeah.
Which,
It wasn't a conservation documentary. This was entertainment, and it had nothing to do with the animals.
Remember The
Or their
Simple Life
welfare.
with Paris Hilton and
Yeah,
Nicole
it's
Richie?
it's shot like that.
So was that edited to be a nature documentary, or was it edited to be as entertaining as possible?
Oh,
And what
I
if
just
it were
remember
edited?
Nicole Richie going into a bar and throwing bleach on a pool table. That was definitely some kind of animal attack.
Natures were being documented, but it was just a different kind of nature, like
A different kind of beast.
like a child that was adopted by a silky, smooth-voiced '70s singer, but wasn't his biological daughter.
That's a whole nother, what do you call it? Pack of information.
Mm-hmm. She was never a gleam in his Jerry curl, is what I'm saying. She was adopted.
That is a whole other discussion. But Carol Baskin, it's become a meme on the internet because Joe Exotic hated her. She sued him and made his life difficult, and he hated her so much that almost daily for years he would say, "That fucking bitch down in Florida, that fucking Karen Baskin." And so people on the internet have started anything they like, "My coffee's bad, fucking Karen Baskin." It's because of that bitch in Florida.
It's like during
it's a thing now.
The Obama presidency, people were saying "thanks Obama." And
Yeah, it's something like that.
It's like a "thanks Obama." What I think is interesting is that people have selected the good guys and the bad guys out of the show. Like Joe Exotic is a hero, and this woman is a
No
villain.
one in this was a hero, though, and a lot of people have discussed
that's my
that.
takeaway. It's like, as it's described to me and from the footage I've seen, just like saying these people are all like pieces of shit.
Yes.
There are no heroes here.
They're all awful people. I don't think she killed her husband. But it's funny that she might have fed him to tigers.
But don't you think a lot of the viewers see themselves in these characters? So you say these are pieces of shit, and they might say, "Oh, you're saying I'm a piece of shit? I'm kind of like this dude." It's like when Eastbound and Down came out, a lot of people thought, "Oh, I am that character." They didn't. They weren't watching it comedically. It's like, "Oh, this is like my life."
But did Eastbound and Down do a little bit to make him sort of like likable?
Well, that wasn't a documentary. That was like scripted.
Yes, it was.
It was scripted. Right? It's not a real person.
There are people like that, and if you watch Tiger King, you'll know it's true.
Well, if you watch Tiger King, you'll know it's worse. What you'll find out is that Eastbound and Down was not an exaggeration. It was a cleanup job.
Yes.
It was a cleaned up version of real people that actually exist in these areas of the country that I talked about in a long-winded way earlier. I don't know if any of that sounded good, but I'll keep it in.
I think they're a little bit scary, these people. You realize that not only are animals being abused, people can disappear at any time. I mean, the guy who was drug dealing...
They're a little bit scary. I think that's their principal quality. That's why I don't spend much time in these parts of the country, If you go to Oklahoma, enjoy Oklahoma City. It's very cosmopolitan now. Tulsa has rich history. It has some beautiful buildings downtown, and there are areas where you are safe in Tulsa. But you start going outside these cities, and the years start rolling back, and suddenly, it's 1930.
Do you think there are places like that in Texas? Because I feel like Texas... people have a wrong idea about it. It feels much more forward-thinking than people imagine.
I think they both have a wrong idea about it, and also the right idea about it.
Maybe Dallas. Sorry, Dallas.
I mean, Jasper comes to mind.
Yeah, there are some places. It's a big state.
I'm just saying, 1930 can happen at any moment in any of these states, so don't get too comfortable.
Well... I don't know if there's much more to say about Tiger King. He should probably rot in prison. I don't think she killed her husband. None of these people should be operating or owning tigers.
I think he should be pardoned, and Trump should replace Mike Pence with him as his vice presidential running mate, Joe Exotic.
It'd be a smart move.
Very smart. Be elected. He'd be reelected.
That's so sad. I'm not even thinking in that direction, but you lay it on the table and immediately there's agreement. 1930 is happening everywhere.
Unfortunately, that's not 1930. That's 2020. Let that sink in.